Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Lunch and Learn. There we go. We've got our wonderful live studio audience, as always, on Zoom. I'd say give everyone a wave, but no one will be able to see you. But they can hear you, so that's the most important thing. So lovely to have you all here. Nice bit of sunshine going on today. As we come to the final two parshas of the book of Shemot. Everybody say ooh. There we are. Can you believe it, guys? We're still in Corona land, and we're 2 books in now to the Torah. It's a bit crazy, but there we go. Vayakhel and Pirkei. We've got Pesach around the corner. Very exciting. I'm sure everyone's buzzing for all of the amazing festivities and an amazing, huge communal Sidorim that we're all going to be able to have this year. Joking aside, I will put out there that if anyone has questions about Pesach, if anybody is concerned about Pesach, if anyone has questions about Pesach, then do please be in touch so that we can help you. There are going to be some lovely resources coming your way, some lovely little gift packs. So there are some things to look forward to. We've been partnering with like what Nova says, stuff to read, stuff to enjoy that will hopefully enhance it just that little bit more. So that is coming your way, please God, before Pesach. And beyond that, if any of you are concerned about having to prepare loads of food for Pesach, then do know that Ashley has got pre-cooked food that he has on offer that he sells. And kosher deli, and a lot of the butchers and the delis in Edgware, you can get some good pre-cooked food from over there. So I just thought I'd mention that. By the way, people, this is very important. If you do know anyone who is struggling or may appreciate financial assistance, then please help them. Help us help them, and let's all get connected, and let's make sure everybody has what they need for Pesach. So there are funds available to be able to help people, and if we know of anyone, and turning to you guys on Facebook and YouTube, if you know of anyone, please help us help them. Back to Vayakhel and Pirkei, double parsha, hundreds and hundreds of verses this week. And it's pretty much a replication of the parshiot from 2 weeks ago, from Teruma and Tetzaveh. So Vayakhel focuses now, whereas Teruma and Tetzaveh was about what the Mishkan was going to look like, the tabernacle, Vayakhel and Pirkei are the actual building of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, and of the creation of the uniforms of the Kohanim. So it's a long parsha. Everything gets built. So we don't necessarily need to go through each and every single item that gets created, but that's the summary of Vayakhel and Pirkei. Vayakhel focuses on the Mishkan, Pirkei focuses on the Kohanim, and at the end, the Shekhinah rests on the Mishkan itself, and that's the whole point, really. It's creating that home for God, for the Shekhinah to come and rest, the divine spirit to dwell amongst the Jewish people. That's what the Mishkan is all about, providing the sanctuary, providing the home for HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. So that's a little bit about Vayakhel and Pirkei. I thought I would just share one idea that I heard only this morning as a bit of a pre-Pesach thought, which was that which is the concept of the Afikoman, right? So normally when we share ideas for Pesach, we get loads of ideas from stuff at the beginning of the Seder, And then, towards the end, we don't hear very much. But this was a power heard, and I thought I would share it with you, which is there is a custom for in many families. You can put your hands up if this is your custom, but there's a custom that it's not well, it works both ways actually. There's two ways you can do the Afikoman. One is for the host or the head of the Seder to hide the matzah, and then the children have to go and find it. And one is the children hide the Afikoman, and then the adults or the head of the household, whoever it is, the head of the Seder has to go and find it. Just as a show of hands, who hides it so the kids can find it, and who hides it so where the kids hide it and then you have to find it. So hiding it for the kids to find, hands up.
Sorry.
Hiding the Afikoman so that the children can find it, quick show of hands. And hiding it so that the adult has to find it, the kids go off and hide it somewhere. Does anyone do that way? Fair enough. Anyway, long time ago, yeah. So either way, the idea. Thank you, Zadie. Only a couple of months now, Dad, and then we'll let you in the garden. So either way, whichever way you practice this particular part of the Seder, which we call safun, the hiding. Someone's beeping over here. Who are we gonna switch off for the violation of beeping? Anyway, so I think it's gonna be that one. Whichever way round it is, there is an idea that emerges from safun. This point in the Seder, which is all about revealing something which is hidden. Now, if we take into account that the whole Seder experience is about not just reminiscing, not just ticking the boxes, not just telling the story about how the Jews came out of Egypt, but we are supposed to relive the Exodus from Egypt. We are supposed to experience it in some way. The way that we experience coming out of Egypt is for us to all reflect and to think about the areas that weigh us down, the things that stop us from being the best people that we can be, or fulfilling our potential in life. So we all have what are known as Meitzarim. That's where the name Mitzrayim and Meitzarim, they are two very similar words. The Jews were in Mitzrayim, and we are coming out of our Meitzarim. We are coming out of our confines. We are coming out of the things that shackle us down, the issues or the obstacles in our paths to greatness. And Pesach is that time of freeing ourselves of these shackles, freeing ourselves of these from the slavery that we all have. So this concept of safun, of children being a focal point of bringing things from hidden to a revealed state, from a psychological point of view, from a point of view of us coming out of our Meitzarim, there's an idea that whatever it is that we might be trying to hide, the things that we might try and conceal, the problems that we have, the blemishes in our character and our behavior that we try and suppress and pretend aren't really there so that we don't have to deal with them, it ends up being our children that triggers these things to be revealed. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it was an idea that I was just hearing a few minutes ago, and it was resonating with me a little bit. If someone is an angry person, this is what I always come back to, because it's one of the big things that I struggle with. So you can go through life, and as far as everyone is concerned, you never show a trace of anger, but it's your kids that reveal that part of you, the interaction with the home. It's the home that really shows where your true colors are at. So yeah, I feel like, oh, hello, someone's ringing. Who's ringing over there? If you are ringing, then there we go. I'm sorry, Nova, I'm going to mute you there. So anyway, so Pesach, which is all about freeing ourselves from our shackles, freeing ourselves from our our own prisons, our own things that we are trying to suppress, ignore, pretend aren't really there, it always comes out to the open when we are interacting with our children, when we are interacting with our families. We show our true colours, we show who we really, truly are. So that was a connection there that I found quite intriguing, I found quite interesting. But there we go. Enough waffle from me. Let's have a look at well, it's not enough waffle from me. I'm going to waffle more about Pirkei Avot now. So let's get it up on the screen and let's start today's Mishnayot in the plural because we might be able to get through more than one. Everyone seeing that on the screen?
Yeah.
Fantastic. There we go. So we are midway. No, we're not. We're second line in the Hebrew there, at the top of the page, and the end of the second line in the English at the top of the page over there. So we started last week with the words of Rabbi Yanai, and Rabbi Yanai had told us that it is going to be beyond human comprehension for us to truly understand why the righteous suffer and why the wicked prosper. And now we move on to the next guy, which is Rabbi Masya ben Harash. So we're still in the 2nd century with these rabbis. We're still in the time of the Hadrianic persecutions, and we actually meet this week Rabbi Matya ben Harash, who we're told actually moved to Rome. He had to leave Israel and he had to settle in Rome, and he was actually very successful there and was able to be a part of quite a vibrant community which existed in Rome at the time. So those are some introductory remarks to our Mishnah today. Is anyone going to read us the English? I might just check through it. Yeah, hopefully there's nothing too what's the word? Nothing too. What word did you think of?
Controversial?
No, that's what I was going to say. Hopefully the translation is not too dissimilar from the actual Hebrew. So let's see how we go. Who's going to read it for us?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Rabbi Matthew ben Harash said, upon meeting people, be the first to extend greetings, and be a tail unto lions, and not a head unto foxes.
Thank you very much. So he says, have a makdim b'shlom kol adam. So when you meet people, have a makdim, which it translates there as be the first to extend greetings. One has to initiate being the first one in to say hello to people. So we have to understand why that is such a nice thing to do. So we'll ask that to you guys. And then the second is, it's a bit more cryptic, and we'll have to understand what he's trying to bring out with this symbolism, to be a tail to lions rather than a head to foxes. So what do we think, first of all, guys? Taking the initiative to greet people. Where do you stand on that? Is that something that is uniquely Jewish? Is that something that is extremely important?
Not uniquely Jewish. If you go to Italy, everyone says good morning. You don't even know who they are walking along in the street. Many people.
Very different to London, isn't it?
Yes.
You don't have to go to it, you go to Bournemouth as well. And my kids used to say yes because they're all old people. So, but you could just say hello, didn't you?
Well, the provinces are more friendly than the south.
Yes, from Manchester, for example, where I'm from, you always talk to people. You always say hello. You always greet people. London tends not to be the same, but that doesn't matter. It's how people are rather than the place. I think yes, it is important to greet people always. Everybody wants to feel welcome and acknowledged. A tail unto lions, I suppose. Don't think first before you don't go head on into things and be angry and become. I suppose a tail unto lions is at the back at the end. instead of being headed into foxes who just go at things as well. That would be my, think
Interesting.
before you.
Think before you act.
My book that gave an explanation that the fox is cunning and he keeps his head low to the ground, but a lion will lift up its tail. So you should be like the tail of a lion because it's looking upwards.
Interesting. Oh, I didn't even see that one.
That's unique.
Oh, I've got a book, but a leather box, and I know that was one of the explanations they gave.
In that context, it. Pardon me, Peter.
I think we might need David Attenborough on this.
But that is quite interesting, isn't it? And it certainly seems to contextually relate more to the idea of greeting people. Then, if you've got, if you're walking around taking notice of things like the tail of the lion looking up, rather than keeping your head buried down like a head of a fox, is that what you think it's trying to say, or am I missing it?
That's the explanation that my book gives you.
Lovely.
For that.
Let's turn to Joy.
It says a proverbial saying is found in the Jerusalem Talmud in reverse: "Be the head amongst foxes rather than tail among lions."
Oh, really? That's annoying. That just go on, Joy.
I was rather looking, if you think about the character of the animal, so a lion is a leader. He looks after his family. Well, he doesn't actually, but he's supposed to be looking after your family. So it's the sort of person that you could follow. The tail follows the animal.
Yeah.
And a fox, as somebody's already said, is a cunning thing, and you don't want to sort of act in a way which is negative, in a sort of nasty, cunning way, which foxes can do. So I would be looking at the character of the animal that they're talking about. And
we have the Lion of Judah, don't we?
yeah,
We do.
It's someone to be looked up to and to follow. Where that's where the tail is, to follow.
Certainly a lot of the things.
Can I just mention?
Please.
Yeah. It was just the first bit. I didn't think of it as meeting people in the first instance, walking along the street or anything like that. I was thinking of it more, a bit like Sage. There's a whole room full of people, and it's nice to make people welcome and to make them feel comfortable. And that's the extending greetings thing that I like to do personally, but that is what I think that's saying.
Oh, very good.
We always say shalom for a greeting, which is peace. So we said we had to wish everybody peace. It's like a blessing. Our greeting was shalom.
Right. Yeah. I think there's a lot of beautiful stuff here. I don't have much more to add, to be perfectly honest. The things that I had unearthed as I was looking into this was very much along the lines of what Joy was saying. In terms of the people that we look to, it's better for us to follow. The tail follows the animal. So to follow people who, in terms of their being role models, are the leaders and the people that we look up to, like we would a lion, the king of the jungle, the one that you would turn to. So that was very much how I was looking at this as well. And the head to the foxes. It's better not to be the kind of the best of a worst bunch, if you see what I mean. It's better to be the lowest on the rung but amongst greatness than it is to be the top of the chain but you're amongst a bad crowd. So that was one thing that
Are these two sentences connected in some way? So that seemed to be very
well, Joe's comment made them seem quite connected. I hadn't necessarily appreciated how connected they could be, but Joe was saying that in terms of the way that we conduct ourselves, better to be kind of like alert, as it were, and upright like the tail of a lion than to be cunning, evading, avoiding, and all the rest of it, like the foxes. So I wonder if that then does connect with the taking the initiative and trying to be the first one to extend the greeting. And the words in the Hebrew, heve makdim. So in Hebrew, when something comes before it, we say kodem. So there's the idea of taking the initiative, trying to be the first one. We actually hear about, I thought I'd written down, I think it was Rabbi Yochanan, that we read about in the Talmud. He was able to boast at the end of his life that he had never had to respond to someone's greeting, because he had always made sure that when he was going past someone to take the initiative and to greet them first. And it does seem to be a bit of a Jewish concept that we should be going out of our way to connect with people and be friendly and be amicable and be welcoming. And Joy was making an amazing point there about making people feel comfortable, and one has to actively put themselves out there to make sure that others feel comfortable. And it does seem to be a I'm not saying exclusively Jewish idea, but it's certainly something that Judaism encourages, which is for us to greet people. And that's why I always get frustrated when you're walking around on a Shabbos and you walk past other Jews, not necessarily in Bushi, but in other places as well. You walk past someone, you can see they're Jewish, they can see you're Jewish, and you've got an opportunity to wish a good Shabbos, and you walk past and no one says anything. It's like, someone actually told me that that when that happens to them, when they walk past Jewish people and they don't wish them a good Shabbos, they say, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were Jewish." So yeah, we've got opportunities to greet people, Jewish, non-Jewish, whoever it is. But what's interesting as well, this heve makdim. I will come to you, Rita. I'm sorry, I have seen your hand. Heve makdim, the taking the initiative, the trying to get in there first. It would seem, therefore, that one thing that is a part of this is the phrase "fake it till you make it." Even if we don't feel like greeting people, there's still a positive thing to emulate and to work towards, and even if we don't feel it, we have to try and greet people, say hello, greet them with a smile, because we never know what they're going through, they never know what we're going through. But those brief encounters, wishing people well, those brief encounters can change a person's day, and we never know the impact of it. Over to you now, Rita.
Now, what Peter was saying, and I can just see it now, after greetings, right, you've got a capital A. Why did it start like a new sentence? So Peter said they might not be connected. Why did it put a capital A? I don't know where the Hebrew goes. He said, comma or whatever.
So it's the
A and B.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It that's a good question. It comes from the old Sonsino translation. So we're going to need an old school English teacher to help me out there.
Not a capital. It follows on.
It does, right? Okay.
In the next thing, it's got capital A.
Yeah, it does on screen. I mean, the sentence in the Hebrew. I don't know if you can see my mouse hovering over here, but there is a full stop there. But then the sentence starts veheve. The fact that there's an and there does mean that there is some kind of connection or building off the previous. I'm not sure, but
It's not a full stop on yours. It's a semi. But
down here in the English it is, yeah.
Yeah, the English.
But in the Hebrew up here, it's a full stop. I'm not really sure, Rita. Not sure.
But with the same sentence and.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose it depends on the translation. I don't know.
Yeah. But there we go. So that's yes, Paul. Paul, am I allowed to take an opportunity to mention what happened to you a couple of days ago?
With pleasure.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, our dear friend Paul has just recently celebrated his birthday a couple of days ago. So if we want to take an opportunity to wish him a very happy birthday, now would be the time to do that.
Thank you very much.
Happy birthday.
Mazel tov.
Happy birthday.
21
Thank you,
again.
everybody.
21 again, eh?
I wish. Very nice. Rabbi, my question to you was going to be, why? What's the explanation for them putting this rabbi together with the previous rabbi and his thoughts all in one, all together? It seems to me what the previous rabbi said was extremely fundamental to Judaism and is like big bold letters and quite difficult. Whereas this, yes, I think it's nice. We should meet people and speak to them first, extend a greeting. But it's nothing like the previous one. And I find it quite strange that anybody would want to, in some way, put them together.
It's a good question. It's a good question. I'm not sure that I have a good answer. I don't know. This is why it's difficult, because actually the book that I'm using here, they are separate Mishnah statements.
Oh, fair enough.
But if you were to have a look in the, if you were to have a look in the Green Siddur, I would anticipate that they are put together. I'm just wondering if I've got Pirkei Avot here that I could quickly navigate to. Yes, I do.
The first one is Mishnah 19 and this one is Mishnah 20. They're completely different Mishnahs in my book.
Rabbi Yanai and Rabbi Yamasi. Yeah, in the art scroll, they're printed separately. I don't know why.
No problem.
I don't know why. Sorry, but
because
there will be an answer, and there will be a level of depth to the answer, and I'm sure that answer will reveal how amazingly intertwined and connected the two Mishnah are. The answer would blow our minds and offer all resolutions to the question that you asked. I unfortunately just don't have any idea.
My second question was on the first one. Just going back to that for a moment. Is that fundamentally now Jewish law that we must abide by, or is it what Rabbi Yanni thinks? It's a great thing, look. You can't explain the reason. Does that deny Jewish people the right to continue to ask or argue or discuss?
No, it does not.
Is he saying, look, you just can't, you're not that right, you're not going to get the answer, none of us are going to know, Shongaluk, as my grandma would say.
No, that's not the case. The opposite, we encourage questions.
Yes, indeed, and yet he is saying it's not in our hands to explain the reason, either security of the wicked or even the affliction of the righteous. It's such a fundamental sentence to Judaism that it's almost a sentence which is like it's beyond just a very nice idea. Like the second one is. Okay,
I would say that he's not trying to say you can't ask about it. I think it was more, there comes a point where we have to, you talk about this occasionally as well, drawing the line under how far you try and take the search for understanding. I think it's that you talk as well about the leap of faith, or the sidestep of faith, as I would call it more. It's more the fact that we're never going to have potentially, maybe this is how we would interpret it, you're never going to have the concrete, physical proof or whatever of why these things happen they do. But it shouldn't stop us from leading our lives, and it shouldn't stop us from connecting and all the rest of it. So I don't think he's trying to say, don't ask the question, it's beneath you. I can understand it, but you can't. I think it's saying that even because we are finite, we are not ever going to be able to really understand, certainly in this lifetime, which is why it's interesting that someone brought up the next mission. We're going to see it now. But in this lifetime, we're not going to be able to understand with clarity why things happen the way they do.
So are we able to say that these things are beyond reason?
No, they're not beyond reason. He said he cannot. He says it's not in our hands to explain the reason, because the reasons are what we wouldn't understand. It's these spiritual people that live half in the next world. These rabbis are not ordinary people. The knowledge that they've gained when they're in their meditation or whatever they do, they can't pass it on. Only a glimmer of it, because it'd be beyond our understanding. They're not saying that.
I think as
so
well.
We would be unable.
No, go on, Paul.
Well, I think to say the words "it is beyond reason" is exactly what he's saying.
Well, it's not, because you wouldn't be able to understand the reasons.
I accept that. That's what he's saying. You wouldn't be able to understand, therefore, is beyond reason. And we, as normal people, might find it unreasonable.
Well, they would.
Might be another way of putting it.
They don't understand, so they would find it because it's beyond their comprehension. But it doesn't mean to say, but we just have to do the best we can. We know we have to try as best we can to be as good as we can.
I think perhaps the idea as well is that there is a reason for everything. There is a logic for everything. It's beyond us to really understand it. We all look at life with our own version of the truth, with our own lenses, with our own biases, and even if we see something happening and we think we can understand it, that might not have been the divine calculation at all. So even if we see something happening in this world that does make sense, we couldn't say with any certainty that is actually the divine calculation, because we can never truly understand the divine calculation. I've mentioned this before, but there's the episode with the 10 martyrs who were taken out to be killed at different times, and the angels. It's a midrash, and the angels complain to Hashem, like, how you can do this to these 10 amazing righteous people, and God, so to speak, silences them and says, if you really want to understand my ways, I would literally have to pull apart the entire world and show him to, just rip the whole thing up and start again, just so I can show you step by step why everything had to happen the way that it did. And that's something that, as finite beings, we can't really do by ourselves. We can get glimpses into it, and we can see different things, and we experience it in our own lives, where we get to a point where we look back at something and we say, oh, if that hadn't happened, then I wouldn't have been able to do that. And if I hadn't interacted with this particular individual, I wouldn't have been equipped with the little bit of knowledge that they gave me. And that helped over here, because when I was asked that question, I had an answer to the question. And because I knew how to navigate the government system or whatever from this experience, I was able to help somebody else who needed to, whatever it is. Yeah. So we all have these glimpses where things happen to us in our lifetime. We don't understand why, but we're able to piece it together a little bit sometime later and make sense of a little bit. But we're never going to be able to do that with every single one of the 7 billion people that live on this planet, and who have lived on this planet for however many years. God is able to see every single strand and every single thread that has happened, but we will never be able to do that. We might be able to do that with small parts of our own lives or other people's lives, but we will never be able to do that in its entirety. And I think that's the thrust of it, to be able to understand everything in its entirety beyond finite human comprehension. With that, let's have a look then at the Mishnah 16 there on the screen, or 22, 21 for some people. Rabbi Yaakov, and Rita always likes to check that I know when we're talking about. We're talking about the 2nd century CE. We're talking about the Hadrianic persecutions. This Rabbi Yaakov is actually the teacher of Judah the Prince, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi. So we're getting ever closer, actually, in history to the point at which Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi comes along and seals and closes the book of Mishnayot. Right? So we're learning Mishnayot, and we are one step away now, one generation away in terms of Jewish history of getting to the point where Rabbi Yehuda comes and codifies all of these statements and all of these halachot into the book of the Mishnah.
Rabbi, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. But the whole of Pirkei Avot, is it in date order?
It occasionally jumps about, but you may recall in chapter 1 where we had the chain of transmission from Mount Sinai all the way down. So it did go in chronological order, certainly chapter 1. And actually chapter 4 here as well is all happening around the same time. These rabbis are all living around the same time, 1 or 2 generations before Rabbi Judah the Prince. So in some ways we've gone through things quite chronologically, but it does skip around a tiny bit here and there. But it keeps me on my toes, so thank you, Rita. Okie dokie, guys. Rabbi Yaakov. Okay, anyone know what a vestibule is?
Yeah.
Entrance hall.
Excellent.
My English.
So ha'olam hazeh domeh leprosdor b'fnei ha'olam haba. This world, as we know it, is compared to a vestibule or a corridor, b'fnei ha'olam haba, in front of or before the world to come. Interesting. Hatkein atzmacha b'prosdor kedei shetikanes letraklin. So, well, one has to prepare themselves in the corridor in this world, kedei shetikanes letraklin, so that we can enter the banqueting hall. That is the metaphor or the symbolism for Olam Haba. Okay, so if we can picture the world to come as the big banquet hall, as the destination, as the place where we want to ultimately get to, we first have to pass through the corridor to be able to get there. So this world, the world that we live in, the opportunities that we have in our lives to do good, to do mitzvot, to spread our light and to spread our love, that is like the waiting room, the corridor, the vestibule, before ultimately getting to the main feast, to the big, where the action really is. So this is also one of those, fundamental, famous Mishnayot. People may have heard this kind of idea before. But I would love to hear your comments and your questions to this. Rita, you were in there first. Go on.
Yeah, actually understand it. Before you go into any room, even in your own home,
yeah,
you step from outside, you go into your vestibule or corridor or whatever place you visit.
Amen.
You go into this thing and then you go into your room, kitchen, dining room, whatever you do. So you have to step first into your vestibule,
yeah,
to your corridor, before you get into a room where you can enjoy life, where you can prepare your food, where you can do things. But to me, this is an easy one.
I think the word banqueting hall is a strange word to use, isn't it?
Is it?
I'd have expected like a garden or something like that. It's a garden that you step into. Banqueting hall.
Like a foyer.
I know Jews like eating, but that's sort of enticement.
Go on, Joy.
I'm looking at the word vestibule and I immediately thought of waiting room and what waiting means. So although I can take it, I understand what we've all been talking about and I like the idea of going through someone to get to somewhere better. Okay, but I'm sure it says somewhere in Judaism, and I don't know where, that it isn't just a matter of waiting. You have to enjoy and experience life to the full before, and obviously do good deeds, etc., before you go into the banqueting room. So it's just that waiting room. We're not really, are we waiting for that with excitement, or are we not waiting? Is it just a hall or a corridor, etc.?
A great question. We'll come to that. Let's see if anyone else wants to chime in as well.
Like a foyer of a theatre. You have to prepare yourself for the next world.
Yeah.
By being, if you can. It's a preparation for the world to come, which we don't know what will be. So it's a leap of faith, really. You have to prepare all the things that come to you. You have to deal with as best in the good light as you can,
Sure.
so that you're spiritually to advance in the world to come.
Well, it's like to me, it's like you're working your way through to get to the banqueting, and the banqueting is to receive, not to begin, to be received. So you're working your way through at the same time as preparing yourself in this world. It's like a holding area, and then we get to the banqueting hall, where hopefully you will receive the rewards for doing that.
That's very interesting, because the word Kabbalah, which is our spiritual tradition, means to receive. That was very interesting, Peter, because it is to receive.
Interesting. Yeah, very good. Rita, you've got your hand up as well.
Rabbi, I'm just questioning, I don't know, Joy said vestibule is waiting room. But what does the Hebrew say?
A prosdor.
What does that mean?
The Hebrew there is a prosdor. So, I mean, apparently it means vestibule. But
I said waiting.
yes, these are all kind of images and all things. Just to, I just looked it up on Google, by the way, so we know we can trust it.
I'm just doing that.
The vestibule is the antechamber. It's the hall or the lobby next to the outer door of a building. So it's leading through to something, and you know, it gets translated as corridor. And to be honest, you know, I used the word waiting room before as well. Waiting room, as Joy was pointing out, doesn't have the best connotation, because we're not just sitting here twiddling our thumbs for 120 years, are we? But the waiting room, I guess, in at least that part of the imagery, is the sense that you're in a space.
Rabbi?
Oh, Stanley!
Yeah, I was about to tell you where I'm living at the moment. The residents there refer to it as the corridors.
There you go.
They say they're in the corridor.
I mean, vestibule is certainly not a word that I grew up using with great frequency. When I got sent out of the class, I got sent to the corridor, not to the vestibule. So, or to the head of the year. But
if I'm not mistaken, vestibule is actually used to describe a particular part of Anglican churches.
Is that right? Oh.
That's where you'll hear it most. The vestibule is an actual, in a church, a vestibule is a place, it's where the person who's taking the service will prepare themselves and come into the church.
Vestibule.
I'm sorry to disagree with you, Paul. I think it's the vestry.
That's correct. Yes, it's the vestry.
Where they put their
vests on.
But I think it's all much of a
On the downstairs, one of the corridors we go through is a very cold corridor.
May I suggest?
Hello, Gary!
Hello, sorry I'm driving. May I just suggest, I think of the vestibule as the waiting room where you're waiting before an audience with the king.
Oh.
It certainly is one of those things. in Google.
Yeah. So
Father was saying something. Your dad was speaking.
he was just challenging Paul.
Oh.
And saying that the room where the person leading the service gets changed is called a vestry. But Joy was also making that point. It's become like a QI episode now. So either way, let's see if we can unpack a little bit of what the Mishnah is trying to teach us, what Rabbi Yaakov is trying to get us to tune into a little bit over here. And I you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it certainly strikes me that most of the world, most of the way that society functions, doesn't necessarily look at the world that we live in as just the stepping stone to whatever's coming next. Whether we call it a vestibule, a corridor, a vestry, whatever we're calling it, we typically lead our lives like this is where it's at. This is where I have to get all of my enjoyment in, because once I'm gone, and that's the end of it, and nothing comes next. And even though we may believe that there is a world to come, a system of reward and punishment and all this kind of thing, and heaven and hell and whatever we're buying into as coming after our lives, it's not necessarily ever present in our consciousness that that's the way that we should lead our lives. And what's interesting is that, you know, we always talk about Judaism as being a religion of mindfulness. We're supposed to keep certain things in our mind, because if we remember them, then it will influence the way that we act, and it will influence the way that we behave. So we have to be mindful of the fact that we need to do mitzvot, and we need to be kind to people. We need to keep how we treat others and how we behave in our lives ever present in our mind. We can't just switch off. You know, when we switch off and default to bad behaviors or unfriendly personalities or whatever it might be. So we always have to be mindful and switched on to how we're behaving and what we're doing, and thinking about what we're doing. And, you know, little things like making brachot before we eat, that's a part of Jewish mindfulness. We don't just like stuff our faces. We stop for a moment and realize that it's come from Hashem, and we bless it and we sanctify the moment, and then we continue. So this is another part of Jewish mindfulness, to train ourselves to realize. I'm not saying that I'm amazing at this, but to train ourselves. In fact, I'm saying I'm not amazing at this, but to train ourselves to realize that the things that happen to us in this world, this is not where it's all at, and that we are in a foyer, a lobby, a changing room, whatever it is, getting ourselves ready for life in the world to come. One amazing kind of parable I might have shared with this with you before is the analogy of a person who gets told by the king, "You're going to have an hour in my treasure chamber. I'm going to give you as many sacks as you need. Go for it. Take whatever treasure you can get in the next hour, and that's yours to keep." So he gets locked in the chamber. He's given these sacks. He sees the clock on the wall start counting down from 60 minutes, and he's looking around, and there's towers and mountains of gold coins, and there are crowns and scepters and jewelry and jewels and all of these amazing treasures. So he starts piling in the treasure into these sacks. He fills up one sack pretty quickly, goes for the second one, and he's looking around. It's been 5-10 minutes. He's looking around. He's thinking, I'm never going to get all of this. What's the point in even trying? Look how much there is. So he just kind of stops, and he just falls asleep for the other 45 minutes. And, you know, how do we react to that? You're in the treasure room. Take as much as you can get. Who cares if you don't get the whole lot? Just fill up whatever you can. And that's an apt analogy as well for the life that we are in now. We are given 120 years in Hashem's treasure chamber, with amazing opportunities to do mitzvot and to do things for other people and to be good people and whatever else. So why would we say, oh, I can't do all of it, so I'm just not going to bother, right? We seize the opportunity. We try as much as we possibly can, shovel as much as we can, do as many things as we can in the time that we have, because once we leave the treasure chamber, we're only going to have those things that we've accumulated, those mitzvot that we're accumulating. That's what we take with us. And if we, if the guy is in the room, in this treasure chamber, and he could be shoveling all of the coins, and instead he's just, he sees on the other side of the room there, he sees, I'm trying to think of an example of the things that we end up wasting our lives on that don't have meaning and don't have significance and don't actually help us, but we spend our entire time filling ourselves up with those things. And when we leave the treasure chamber, we'll be disappointed because we haven't maximized the opportunity that we had. So that's one big thing, to see this world as a finite, mortal, temporary existence that is just the foyer to the great palace that awaits. I guess you could say it's a bit like, you go to visit Buckingham Palace and you're standing outside in the courtyard going, wow, look at this place. And then you come away feeling like, wow, I saw the outside of Buckingham Palace. And you're like, the outside of Buckingham Palace? Mate, if you'd have gone through the door, just think what you'd have seen there. So we can be so enamored with the thing that isn't even the main event. And it's going to tie into stuff that we'll talk about next week with how to understand this world and the next world, and the difference between the two. This is just the entranceway. It's just the point. There's more to come. And if you think this is nice, just you wait, because that stuff's going to be even better. And that's one of the primary things that emerging from this thing. Someone was talking before about preparing. I think it was Gary maybe talking about preparing for the audience with the king, right? So if we can imagine that for a second, we're standing in the corridor, we're about to go and meet the king. What are we going to say? We have to have it in our minds. We have to be ready. We have to be preparing ourselves. We have to make sure that we are dressed appropriately for this audience with the king. And what is our clothing really in a spiritual sense? Our clothing is our mitzvot. We have to, when we get presented to the king, we want to be wearing the best clothes that we could possibly get. And those are our mitzvot. That's what we take with us when we get presented ultimately to the king. If you're just planning to walk in and not know what to say, that's not the best advice. We want to plan what we're going to say. So we spend our whole lives planning. We spend our whole lives training, as it were. The mitzvot that we do, we're training to be ready for an audience with the king, like Gary was saying. I think that's a beautiful way of looking at it as well. So this world is the preparation. So it's not a waiting room twiddling our thumbs. Specifically, it's the opposite. It's the opportunities that we have to really get ready and to be prepared. And I feel like I'm going to get the question of, wait, so does that mean I can't enjoy anything in this world? I think it's the opposite of that. I think it's the kindness of Hashem that not only are we preparing, but we're actually enjoying it while we're preparing it as well. It's not supposed to be a burden. It's not supposed to be something that weighs us down. It's supposed to be something that we actually enjoy doing as well, and we find meaning and we find pleasure and we find enjoyment in the very things that Hashem wants us to do, because he is communicating to us that these will make us the best people that we can be. Isn't it amazing that you can actually enjoy that process as well? So that's a powerful thought too, that even though this world is the place of preparation and investment and effort. It's not supposed to be a drag and a burden, and I just want to get rid of this just so that I can move on to the next thing. What we're also being encouraged to realize is that the way in which we prepare is actually the most pleasurable and the most enjoyable, and brings us happiness and brings us satisfaction in life. It's all part of it. So yeah, comments and questions.
Oh, I've got something to say. The banqueting hall, I just thought it was something to make you really, when you said to say, even to a child, if you're going to do this, this, and this, you will get this. And I think that's what he says, you get rewards.
Yeah.
Which is the best thing.
If you...
Banqueting hall is just reward.
Yeah, yeah. But it's, I guess the imagery, we've seen what the inside of palaces, and we've seen what it looks like, the decorations and the amazing food and all this. We can kind of picture these things in our mind a little bit, and I think that's why he chooses that imagery. We know what a fancy wedding can look like, with all of the lights everywhere and the flowers on the table, and you walk into that room and you're just completely astonished and completely overwhelmed, and the food is just incredible, and the experience is just amazing. So we're given this physical imagery of what we're really saying is the spiritual reward, the spiritual benefit, very much so. If we can have it in our minds that what's coming is better than where we are now, that's I think that's where this is going. So yeah. Any more for any more? Oh, it's all gone quiet over there. So we'll be delving into this a little bit more next week with next week's Mishnah. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to wish you all a wonderful and meaningful day. Do join us next week for Lunch and Learn. And in the meantime, we bid you adios.